Today's topic is Synopsis 101, using AI for plotting. Today's session is co-facilitated by myself, Mira Gold and WordSpinner. I am a North American author who kind of dabbles in poetry. I also write fiction and scripts. Cece?
Texas author. I don't dabble in poetry.
I don't know. You've been known to dabble a little bit, just not a whole lot.
Yeah, call me out like that, would you?
I sure did, didn't I? Sorry about that. So, welcome to the eGlobal Creative Writing Salon. One of the books that I really like to fall back on sometimes is Francine Prose, because she discusses the idea of writing words and how those words you pick will create the sentences that in turn create those paragraphs that bring your story to life. Too often, as writers, we focus so much on plot and the story that we forget that there are whole other aspects to writing a story and that they all need to work together. And at the core of those items is language and the manner in which it can utterly enliven in a body of work. Unlike prose and, say, Gertrude Stein, not everyone enjoys the task of diagramming a sentence. That was a topic when I was in school. I just dreaded having to diagram a sentence. I had friends who just loved that. So in storytelling, you will find that people tend to plot and come up with their ideas in a slew of different ways. You have pantsers, you have plotters, you have planners, you have people who plot extensively with massive spreadsheets like Elizabeth Ann West. You have other people who tend to like to use the story webs. Whatever method works for you, hold on to it. Continue to grow that method and make it your own. Make sure that whatever is working for you today, that you continue to grow upon. And I hate to say this, but what works today in one book may not necessarily work 100% with the next book or the next genre. So in writing, you are always growing, you are always analyzing works, and you are always looking at ways to better your craft. Prose once said, to talk to another writer about sentences feels like forging a connection based on the most intimate and arcane sort of shop talk, much like the way mathematicians might bond on the basis of a shared, obscure, maybe elegant theorem. So again, writing is that way, and being able to find a group of writers that you are comfortable communicating with, that is so pivotal, because often we sit in an office all by ourselves typing away at the keys. So every now and then it's good to venture out of our writing cave and talk to another real person. Today's objectives, the basis of AI, a quick primer on artificial intelligence and how it can be relevant to writers, plotting with AI assistance, AI generated ideas, refinement and cohesion of your story, how we can use an AI to actually help us in the plotting process, and how it is a wonderful resource for helping an author or writer be able to organize his or her thoughts. Now, do you often find that you're struggling to figure out the foundation of your story? If so, you're not alone. But keep in mind that with AI as a resource, you have the internet right there at your fingertips. What I often find is that I can have a little conversation with AI. I can ask it questions about tropes, about themes. I can ask it about genres, subgenres, how I can blend them together. Think of talking with the AI as a conversation. If you had another person that you were sitting across from, or a writing partner, how would you communicate with that individual? What questions would you want to bounce off of that individual? You can do the same thing with AI. Now, one thing to keep in mind, the tagline of your story and premise have three things in common: who the story is about, the protagonist, what they're striving for, what their goal is, and what stands in the protagonist's way, that antagonistic force. And we want to make sure that we have that information when we go forward. One of the things that I like to use when I'm plotting is when a major event happens, the central character character must perform this main action or goal, and this important thing is at stake because of the antagonistic force. Now, that can be anything from an actual person, or it could even be man against nature. It could be a tornado. It could be a tsunami. So again, think about what your story is at the core. Give me a minute here, and I am going to change my screen. So for today's example, I'm going to use a couple of different templates. Cece, I believe I sent you a couple of things, so you also should have access to these. If not,
Yep.
let me know. Okay.
Yep.
I'm actually going to go ahead and start with the 8-book series template because we are looking at e-global type bodies. We want to talk more about serialized bodies. So if we're looking at an 8-book or 8-season series as a template, that means that in a serialized platform, each so-called book would become a season, kind of like when you're watching a television program and say you're watching The Walking Dead or another television show, you watch one season at a time and you see all those episodes for the year. And then when season 2 comes out, you have brand new episodes. So think of your serialized body in the same context that you would think of watching a serialized body on television. You are going to have specific episodes. You can equate those episodes to chapters in a book and think of each season as being a self-contained book that has some type of an adventure, and it generally will end on a cliffhanger so that it can spur that interest and push the reader to the next season. So let's go ahead and play with this writing prompt. Now you will notice that it states that it is an 8-book genre plus subgenre. With this very basic prompt, I can either tell it exactly what kind of story I want, or I can ask it to create me an engaging 8-book genre plus subgenre. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to take it into Claude and see what we can get Claude to give us. Now, for any of you who have not played around in Claude, if you actually go into claude.ai/chat, you can actually use a free version of Claude, and it actually works fairly well, but it will limit you per how many questions you can ask it. I noticed that I can ask it more questions if I am only just running through questions here and there. But if I upload a whole document, which you can see here at the bottom, I can actually add up to a max of 5 files, 10 MB each, and it can be a PDF, TXT, CSV, and so forth. I do find that the PDFs and the TXTs work very well whenever I am uploading. So in my prompt, I'm going to go ahead and change the genre and subgenre. So Cece, what do you think we should do today? Should we do a thriller? Should we do a fantasy, do an urban fantasy?
Urban fantasy. And by the way, everybody, the prompt is now in the chat.
So we are going to create an engaging 8-book urban fantasy, serialized, interconnected, and why don't we call this an academy series? We're going to assign a new couple for each story season. Now, if I didn't want a new couple for each story season, then I could use the same couple. So instead of saying assign a new couple for each story season, I could say use the same couple for each season and give them a new adventure to partake in. Now, if I didn't want to use this really, really crude generic template and I wanted to feed it my own thoughts, I could do that. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how at its core, this will give you something, but it's really basic and you would need to build upon it. Some of the things that I'm going to ask for are some tropes and some themes. You could actually ask it to give you some symbolism, some motifs. You could ask it to give you a slew of other content as well. We're also going to ask for each season to give us a catchy title, a series name, a compelling series tagline, a clear log line, And as you can see, a blurb and a couple of other items that we're asking for. Let's go ahead and send it off and see what it gives us. Again, at its very base level, it gives us an idea for a story, but it's very basic. So you would need to go in and flesh this story out. So what I'm looking at right now is book 1, First Blood, the log line. It's about a reluctant elf warrior destined to lead a supernatural army. So that's pretty cool. There are lots of things that we could do with an elf warrior. I like the fact that the elf warrior is a female. So rather than it giving me a male warrior, I have a female warrior. So that means that I'm going to have a really strong female lead. Now, if I did not want my female to be the warrior, I could go back in and I could tell chat down in the message area to turn my elf warrior into a man. I could even ask, rather than having an elf warrior, maybe I wanted an elemental warrior. I could make all those changes right here inside of the message area. Now, I could ask for more information about maybe a love interest, who her love interest is. I know that she catches the attention of a vampire combat instructor. So at this point, I don't know if that is her love interest. More than likely it is, but I could ask more questions about that. Again, this just gives me a starter that I can then eventually flesh out into more of a synopsis. We have book 1, we have book 2, which in serialized platforms, book 1 would be season 1, book 2 would be season 2. Then we would have 3, we would have 4, 5, 6, and we would also have 8. Now, again, this just gave us our premise. From here, we would need to expand and flesh that out even further. But let's go ahead and take that same prompt and let's play with this inside of. Now, I am in 3.5 today. I generally like to use 4 because I feel that it's not as vague, but I do want to show you that you can do the same general information. You can use these prompts inside of ChatGPT 3.5, which does not require payment. Here, I did the same general principle that I used over in Claude. I used the same prompt. The Enchanted Chronicles, the series name is Love's Eternal Spell. It gave us the tagline, the log line, and just like it did inside of Claude, I have my book 1, I have my book 2, which can also be considered my seasons. And one of the things that I do like is that it gave me themes and tropes. Now, I do have to prompt it. Notice how it left off with book 2. So when that happens to you, just prompt the AI to please continue. And then it should go ahead and continue to give me the rest of the items. Now, it does say 5 through 8 follow a similar pattern. Now, if I go back up and I look at 3, it did, and it gave me 4, and it's telling me 5 through 8 continue. I can ask it again. Now, this is one of the things that I find with 3.5. I have to keep prompting it to give me the content that I am looking for. Again, I would come back down here and ask it to please give me books 5 through 8, following the same format. Now, before you would flesh any of these premises out into longer synopsises, you would want to read these. Make sure that you liked the general idea of these concepts before you actually flesh them out further. So I have book 6, I have book 7, and then it gave me book 8. I can do the same thing if I start a new chat. I can go to 4, and I can ask 4 to do the same thing. Now, if you are a pseudo-write user, you could use this same prompt inside of your brain dump to generate a synopsis that would have all of this content, or you could even go into pseudo-write story engine. If you're a user of that product, you could go into the outline, put that into the outline rewrite, and ask it to write all of it there inside of your outline section. As you can see, it is giving me my books. As while we're waiting for this to provide the information, let's go ahead and go to one other area. I am not going to fill anything in under the add context. I'm not going to put anything in the description, the tone of voice, or the keywords. I could do that if I wanted to, but I find that when I'm creating a premise, I can just go straight into the body. Now, if I were to paste my prompt here, it would only give me about 200 words at a time, which really does slow down the process. So if you are a Jasper user, one of the ways that you would want to run any of your prompts would be to click on the plus and then go into the Tell Jasper what to write. I just pasted that same prompt in there. And now let's let Jasper show us what it can do. Now, again, this is a very early synopsis. It has not been fleshed out to its full extent. To me, the synopsis that they give is so bare that it feels more like a cross between a premise and a synopsis. We will take one of these and we will flesh it out into a full synopsis during this session. As you can see, it is giving me the different content. It did stop. What I'm going to do is press here and tell it to please continue. Now, there are times when Jasper will give me all of the content at once, and then times when, just like ChatGPT, where I need to continue to prompt it to give me the rest. And often with Jasper, I have to ask it to please follow the same format. Now, this is one of the ways that I found that I can actually use Jasper and engage the system to give me what I want on the fiction side, whether it is nonfiction or fiction content. Are there any questions before we go in and select one of the concepts and drill down into it and expand it into an extended synopsis?
None in the chat.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions? Speak up.
So we are on number 7, and it is continuing to give us those short little synopses that we can then take and flesh out further. Again, what I would recommend is if you use this prompt, I would look at every single one of the seasons or books that it generates. Make sure that it's what you are looking for and what you want. If there are things that you want changed, either have a conversation with the AI and make those changes, or copy the document, put it into a Word document, put it into Scrivener, whatever tool that you like to write in, and then make the changes there. And then you can flesh it out either manually or take it back into an AI. Since we are looking at AI assisted tools, I'm going to go ahead and go back into ChatGPT 4. And you can see up at the top, we're in 4. And it went ahead and gave us all of our books. So the last transaction or request that I had, I asked it to go ahead and give me all 8. Now, as you're scrolling down, remember in 3.5 how it only gave me, I think, the first 2, and then I had to prompt 2 or 3 more times to get it to give me all the books? Well, in ChatGPT 4, as you can see, it gave me my series name, the tagline. It actually gave me the tropes up front. It gave me all of my themes that are associated with all 8 of these seasons or books, which is nice because then I can see an overview of it and I can keep those in mind when I am looking at the bodies of work. Book 1, it has given me the logline, the blurb, a catalyst. Now the blurb in this case is more of your premise. So it did give me the romantic pitch points. It gave me book 2. It gave me the catalyst. It gave me the save the cat moment for book 2. Book 3, same information. I believe Nicole has a question.
Just out of curiosity, what if we wanted to reverse engineer this? Like, say I have my series kind of like halfway plotted out, but I don't have all of these things like the little log line and the romantic pitch points. Would I just take each book that I have plotted and prompt it for those specific things? Would it still keep everything in line?
I'm going to go in and I'm going to take the blurb for book 1. I'm going to take this and let's start a new chat. And I am going to go ahead and paste this inside of my chat. But I'm going to go back and grab that prompt that I have right here. I'm going to grab it, but I'm going to make a few changes to it whenever I take it into chat.
Okay, you made it look so simple. I didn't even think about doing that.
I'm giving it the whispers of war, but I'm now going to alter this using the information below. Apply the following to the current concept for book/season 1. Oh, it just refreshed. Let's try that again. So I'm going to ask it to revise this concept to add the following. You can word it whichever way you want. If there's additional information that you want in here, you can add that. The other thing that you can do is take your very bare premise. You could put it right here and say, write/revise this template using this blurb, and you could give it the blurb and then tell it what the goal is. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to go ahead and give me the Whispers of Fate. Now, if you have an idea for book 1, book 2, book 3, if you already have an idea, then you would go ahead and feed all that information into Chat, Jasper, or Claude and let the AI know, and then you can have it help you to reorganize content if there's something additional that you want added. Now, you'll notice that I like to use Gold's romance beats, and it is something that the AI across the board understands. I also like to use the Snyder beat sheet because it's a template that I am used to and that I'm familiar with. If I'm writing thrillers, I might want to mash up Snyder beat sheet with Lester Dent mysteries. So again, think of the different things that you like. Now, if you have your own template style, you can by all means input that into any of the AIs and say that you want the AI to follow that specific pattern. Are there any other questions before we pick one of these and flesh it out to a longer synopsis?
None in chat, and Nicole said thank you.
Okay, this stopped on season 3, which means that I still have 4 through 8. So I would have prompted this. I would have said, please continue with season 4 through 8, following the same process or format, and let it finish spitting out all of my seasons. So which one of these do we want to do? Do we want to go ahead and take this kingdom secret, her paths collide with this prince? Or do we want to play with what Claude did? Let's take a look at what Claude had. Kind of like the elven warrior. Does anybody have a preference? If nobody has a preference, I'm going to go ahead and take book 1. And I am actually going to go back into ChatGPT 4, but you could do this in any of the different AIs that I've gone into today, whether it is Claude, GPT 3.5, GPT 4, or even Jasper, or you could even go into Pseudo-Write Story Engine. There are so many different AIs out there that you could play in that you could actually use these prompts in. I'm going to start a new session. And within this session, I'm going to go ahead and give what my book is about, but I'm going to go in and grab a prompt. So in my prompt, I am going to ask the AI, this is going to be my step 2. I'm going to ask the AI to evaluate the current synopsis and strengthen any weakness, vague, or problem areas. Now, if I were doing this and I was not on a time constraint, I would actually read through it, make changes, and see areas that I would want to add additional detail to. Today, we are just giving you a mock example of how you can take these forward. My prompt tells the AI to evaluate the current synopsis, strengthen any weak or vague areas. I want to ensure that there's a well-developed storyline. I want it to keep the same information from the prior step, which was step 1. I want to ensure that the characters have first and last names, ages. I want to identify the protagonist, the love interest, and I want to know who the antagonists are. I also want it to give the main characters some physical descriptions. I like to use Myers-Briggs. If you like some other personality type profile, by all means, use what you are comfortable with. Just exchange out Myers-Briggs for Enneagram or any other. And I also am asking it to list 5 descriptor words that reflect the character's personality. And I do want to let y'all know that we are going to be going over a little bit I do not have any other class, so if you want to hang around, you are more than welcome to do so. Hitting this and telling it that I wanted, it is giving me my character just as I asked, and it's breaking down my characters to give me more information about them. Now, if there's anything about the characters that I do not like, I can actually prompt the AI when it's finished to make those changes. Now, a lot of these prompts that you will see me use in these videos, these are prompts that WordSpinner and I have spent a lot of time playing around with. And one of us will come up with a framework, and then we will just go back and forth and fine tuning them. And I like that we can work together in that way, because there are things that I might see at a broader stroke. And then when Cece gets a hold of it, she goes in and she just drills down really, really deep into the content to fine tune it. So we do have a minor character list that's coming up. Cece, is there anything that you'd like to add about the process of use?
No, not really. The only thing that concerns me, and I noticed this in, I think, all three of the AI, they didn't address the urban part very well.
No, they didn't. So in this one, it did more of a fantasy.
All of them seem more of a high fantasy, epic fantasy, something of that nature rather than urban fantasy. So I know in the interest of time, we couldn't have done that, but I would have gone back and chastised it and had it tweak it to get it closer to an urban fantasy, not something in another realm.
So I just asked it to please add an urban fantasy feel to this concept and write out the revised extended concept. So let's see what it does. Now it is changing it and making it nestled in the heart of a bustling city shielded from human eyes. So the masquerade is in place. Supernatural beings will blend in with the human population. Now, just like what Cece was saying, when you find that the AI is not following through with some of the items that you want done, then just simply go in and give it more instructions. One of the funniest things to me, we tackle the AIs similar in some ways and different in others. I will do a lot of plotting and planning when it comes to beats. And it's funny because I'm such a plotter planner, and Cece does a little bit of plotting, planning, and she also does some pantsing. So when she gets in and she is playing with the AIs, man, she is drilling it down into very, very small, detailed areas, which I think is great for story building, because what the AI doesn't know can really change your story. That's one of the things that Cece does when she's plotting. She makes sure that all of those fine details are taken care of so that her story doesn't stray. So here we do have an extended main plot. Our character is 2 years old, an elf, and it has gone ahead and placed our characters inside of a city. Now, one of the other things that you can do after you have read this, if you want to make changes, talk to the AI. Tell it exactly what you want changed. If there is something that doesn't seem to fit, ask it. I can ask it to review the extended synopsis and identify weak areas and gaps to provide real-time examples. I want to know what kind of things the AI might see and where I might need to strengthen. And this is one of the things that I think is really cool. Say you have a book that's already written and you feel like there's something wrong with it. You could actually load either at a chapter level, or you could load it as a whole book in, say, Claude, or in the code interpreter. I think it's called something else now in ChatGPT 4. But you could load the whole document and ask questions. You could ask the AI to evaluate the content, to provide you developmental edits. Here, I already know what my main points are. I know what it's breaking it down, giving me the areas that could be potential gaps. It lets us know that there could be a gap here and what the solution is. And if you go down and look in book 4, same thing. This kind of gives you a bird's eye view to know what you want to do. And you can even ask it about threads that you may weave from one book to the next, or one season to the next, and how those threads could go all the way across your whole series. That way you can keep an eye on those. And you also want to know not only the threads that may be open for the whole arc series, but you want to know threads that might be in the individual book. So one of the other things that I like to do for my synopsis is build a character list. And we're going to actually talk about our character lists tomorrow. So I'm not going to touch upon our characters more right now, but I do want to let you know that when you're looking at these, say I want to make an adjustment, I can do that right here. I can state to add number 1 and to revise my synopsis. I can give it even more detail so that it can fully flesh it out. Do y'all have any questions?
There's nothing in chat. Anybody?
And as one more prompt for y'all to play around with, I am going to play with this prompt, and I will see about, let me see if I can add it in the group chat. It's too long. I'll do it in parts. This is a really long prompt that I am using. And in this one, I am actually using an urban fantasy romance. And let's see what this one does. And I will provide this prompt as well. That is showing us that content. I am going to add this prompt. Cece, if I send this prompt to you by email, since it's so long, could you grab that and put it into a document?
I sure will. And I'll put it here in pieces if you want me to. And we can include it in the YouTube video in the comments.
Oh, that's perfect. That would be great. So let me go ahead and grab that.
You have a question, by the way. Dion, and I hope I didn't mispronounce your name, says, do you find that you get better output with JSON format compared with regular text?
Actually, I like the JSON, and at times I do feel that I get better responses because I can drill down. Now, the JSON that you see that I use, I have kind of made it a hybrid of what I like to see. My son taught Cece and I the basis of JSON coding at the very bare-boned level. I do prefer to use whenever I'm doing really long prompts because it tends to, especially with ChatGPT 4, kind of makes chat pay attention. And I can actually use it inside of Jasper, and Jasper does well with it too. There are times when Claude will just go off on his own, and sometimes he'll follow it, sometimes he doesn't. One of the areas that I do have some issues with using the JSON in is whenever I am inside of, say, pseudo-write story engine, there are certain cards or fields that follow the JSON better than others. I can tend to use the JSON in the outline area of story engine, and I can use it inside of the beat cards for prose generation. And I do that pretty heavy when I bring something in. So I do like using it. I know, Cece, you tend to like to use other forms. Sometimes you'll use JSON, but sometimes you convert it into non-JSON, correct?
I prefer to use regular text because it's easier for me to read, and I like to separate it with lines. Again, easier for me to read, to discern if it's actually saying what I need it to say and doing what I need it to do.
See, and I like it at a quick glance, especially if I have a lot of things where I am stating I want a certain percentage of dialogue, or maybe I want to turn on internal introspection. Maybe I want to turn it on for one generation of a chapter, but I want to turn it off on another. I can use that true false in JSON to turn elements on and off. And when I do that, I do find that the AI follows that better because it doesn't tend to like the use of do not or no. But if I use true false, it tends to listen to that prompt better. Okay, Cece, I just sent it off.
Okay.
And I sent it to your core email.
I'll wait for it.
So let's take a look at what this prompt gave us. This is a prompt that I really like to play with. I go in, and because it has the hook, it has a setting, it gives me some world building. I know that magic is thriving on emotion and intent. It gives me mythical beings. It gives me some information on who those key players are. Any one of those items I could drill down into with ChatGPT 4. Now I can run this in 3.5 as well. I can also run it inside of Claude, and I can run it inside of Jasper. All of those will run the prompt. We have our tone, our mood, we have our main character intro, how the characters meet, we have our first plot point. If you want additional plot points, you can always add that within your template. We have story arcs, we have goals, motivations, strengths, weaknesses. We even have information about our ensemble cast. We have backstories, midpoint. We do have our pitch, and we have our third. We have conflict, have our climax, closing image. And I do actually like to put symbolisms and motifs in there. And I do like to know what tropes are in there so that I know how to expand. I know that I can put in additional items in my story for conflict, for hidden magical realm. I can focus on forbidden love between species. Maybe there's some type of a treaty and there's a rule of law where they can't intermingle. And maybe they're breaking that treaty. So I could play on any number of those themes or the tropes. Additional seasons, it's letting me know that I can dive deeper into those. And I could potentially come down into the send a message and ask the AI to provide me with additional seasons, either on this specific couple or a new couple. I believe there's a question about, have you experimented with adding universal fantasy to the prompt? I have probably about 115 or 120 prompts in that one romance book, Cece, that has everything from Omegaverse to,
I think at least, yeah.
It has everything in there. So definitely go out and take a look. You can take a look at that. Cece, would you put that link in there as well?
Hold on, sorry. Link to what?
To romance in the digital age?
Yes, and I just put all of the prompt in there, but it's split by the question, just so everybody knows. And do you want the link to the ebook or the link to the video?
Actually, to the video would be good, because then they can grab all of the links in there. And there are, what, about 5 or 6 different templates that are out there on that other video if you want to go and grab those.
You bet. I'll get that right now.
So these are just really good to be able to go in and drill in and be able to massage it and get it to be the story that you want it to be. Now, like what Nicole had asked earlier, if you already have a story, you could use the template. You could find one of those that matches. Maybe it's an urban fantasy and you want to add other elements to it, but you want your story in there. That's when you would actually take the template, you would put it inside of your AI, whether it is Chat or Claude or Jasper, you would put that template in there. But right above the template, I would state to wrap the following concept into the framework below, ensuring that you're adhering to all of the formatting properties of the template, but also ensuring that you are keeping consistent with the premise given. And when you do that, it will wrap all of your story. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Any thoughts, comments? Cece, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, if you guys will kill a few minutes visiting, I will try to create a PDF and a Word document for all these prompts just to make life a little bit easier. So if y'all want to converse and give me a second, I'll drop it right in there. But someone's got to speak.
Cece keeps me a bit organized. I am all over the place. I see something shiny and it's like, ooh, I got to go out and find out how that works. So she's always reeling me back in from all the shiny things.
And by the way, Nicole, you never help with this matter at all, do you? With keeping her distracted now, do you?
I can't take all the blame for that.
I don't know. That's where the Yetis came from.
At the very least, I can think of every morning I wake up and find something from Nicole saying Cece's going to be mad at me, and yeah.
I've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're dealing with the context window problem, because your prompt's pretty long, and some of the different models don't have that much that they can put out. And I know we all complain different things like playground and all that other stuff. Where would you tend to go if you knew that your prompt was going to be really long and you were going to be taking up a lot of space that way?
If I knew that I was going to take up a lot of space, then I would more than likely opt to go into either Claude or ChatGPT 4. But if I am using something like NatDev, or say I'm going into Rexy, that is one that Elizabeth Ann West has created within, I believe. If you were going in there and using her Rexy AI product, then you would need to go in and make sure that the AI LLM that you are picking would be able to handle the load that you're putting in there. So if I'm doing something just at a general level, I might pick maybe DaVinci. I might pick one of the lower models that has a bigger space, or I might even use Hermes. Hermes was kind of interesting whenever I used Hermes. But again, when it fills up and you get your extended synopsis, you would then copy all the information that it generated up to that point. You would copy all that, put that into a document for storage, and then you would delete that to make room within the context window.
Yeah.
So that you could add more content. But I tend to really like to use Claude, Jasper, and GPT-4, and I will also use GPT 3.5.
Is Jasper a paid or a free thing?
Jasper is paid, and so I use Jasper. Jasper I've found is wonderful when it comes to plotting. I can plot all the way up to even getting my story beats. So I can take it from conception to my premise generation, synopsis, into my character list, my chapter outline with primary beats, flesh out each one of those chapter summaries into story beats. But it kind of stops right there when I hit Jasper, because I can get it to give me some prose, but it doesn't give me the prose that I'm looking for in Jasper without a lot of back and forth. I find, yeah, so definitely find something. If you're, I would look at DaVinci and some of the other models. If you find me on Discord, I can send you a list of some of the ones that I like to play in.
Yeah. Okay, good.
You have a question from Dion. First of all, the documents are in there, Word and PDF, and you have a question from Dion. Or would you then use JSON to reduce the space if the prompt was too long? Would it be all in JSON or just in specific parts?
So if I am in a limited area, I try to make it as lean and concise as possible. So I do like the JSON, especially if I'm doing a prompt that has a lot of true or false in it. I like that. Or if I'm using story elements that I need at a certain percentage, I will use the JSON because it really condenses it. I have one prompt that is about 500 words in JSON, but it's in the upper 900 words if I do it non-JSON. So it really does conserve space for me when I'm using the JSON. And again, I don't use the JSON correct per se. You'll find a lot of people who do coding for a living will say, that's not the way JSON is used. Well, it may not be the way that the coders use JSON, but I definitely find that it works for me and gives me more real estate on the page to be able to use when I am limited by characters or word count. And why do I think Jasper is better for plotting? So I've played with it a lot, and I really like some of the context that Jasper gives me whenever it is plotting. And I like being able to go back and forth with Jasper. And I like the fact that usually whenever I input my whole template, it will generally spit out the whole thing from beginning to end. Sometimes I have to prompt it. Like today I had to prompt it, but I would say a good 7 times out of 10, it will give me everything at once.
Can I put a plug in for Claude? I love Claude, and you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
You can pay, it's not a big fee, but I love Claude, and I've had the most continuity and the best results with it. Not to say that chat doesn't have good results, but sometimes it gets flaky.
And that's funny because I like Claude, but I keep finding that I have to bring Claude back around. And that's why I'm saying every writer has their own individual preference. If I am looking for something extremely creative or something in a magical world, I will go straight to Claude because I want that creative flair that Claude has. But if I am doing a murder mystery and it is really specific, maybe it's a techno thrill, I'm going straight into ChatGPT 4 because I feel that it will keep to the task better, especially if it is contemporary and does not have any supernatural elements. ChatGPT 4 will keep it more in that contemporary line rather than Claude, who would take the same prompt and all of a sudden I'd probably have all kinds of sci-fi tech that becomes supernatural. I might have people who can read thoughts and can teleport things. So again, it depends on what story I'm looking to create as to which model I may go to. I don't know. Do you find the same thing?
Well, since most of my stuff is fantasy, if that's what you're asking, that's why I
Yeah.
prefer Claude.
Interesting. And I do like to write thrillers. So that may be why I tend to like to silo to ChatGPT 4, but I do like the more creative side for supernatural stories to go through Claude. And I really like the differences that I can get in both. Any other questions?
None in chat.
Okay. Did you place a link to our Discord?
I did.
Okay.
Oh,
And if
no,
you
I
have-
didn't. I'm sorry. I placed a link to the YouTube, and on the YouTube is a link to the Discord.
So if you have other questions on today's session, feel free to find us on Discord. CC is WordSpinner there. I am Mira Gold. Look us up. You will find people like Nicole in there. You will find Lynn in there. You will find Miss D. There are a host of people inside of the Discord who can answer questions and who write in a wide variety of genres. So if there are no other questions, and is there anything else that we need to add to this today?
Yes, ma'am. If you do go to the YouTube channel and you enjoy what you see and you find it helpful, don't forget to subscribe and to ring the bell. Ding, ding.
Well, this concludes today's session on Synopsis 101 using AI for plotting. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. And Cece, thank you so much for your help today and being a co-facilitator. It makes things go so much smoother.
Thank you for doing it.
And I will see everybody tomorrow. Bye, guys.